The forest was supposed to be quiet, just the crunch of boots on fallen leaves, the distant call of birds, and the weight of a rifle in my hands. But then his eyes found mine, older, sharper, and far too knowing. My best friend's dad. Out here, away from the others, there was nowhere to run from the silence. He leaned closer, voice low enough to shiver down my spine. "Stay here with me," he said. And suddenly, the woods weren't safe anymore. The morning air smelled of pine and damp soil, the kind of sharp, earthy freshness that makes your lungs feel cleaner just by breathing it in. The woods stretched endlessly around us, a maze of shadows and sunlight breaking through the canopy. I adjusted the strap of my backpack and tried to keep pace with my best friend, Tyler, as he led the way deeper into the forest. We'd been planning this hunting trip for weeks. For Tyler, it was tradition, a rite of passage almost, something his father had done with him since he was 12. For me, it was new. My family didn't hunt. The only reason I was here was because Tyler insisted, and because secretly I wanted to impress him. Or maybe I wanted to feel like I belonged. Tyler's dad, Mark, walked just behind us. His presence was impossible to ignore, even though he didn't say much. He was taller than Tyler, broad-shouldered, with that rough, weathered look men get when they spent years outdoors. His jaw was covered in dark stubble, his cap pulled low over piercing eyes that missed nothing. Every step he took was confident, steady, like he knew these was better than his own living room. I told myself I was imagining it, the way his gaze seemed to linger on me whenever I glanced back. Maybe he was just making sure I didn't trip over roots or get lost. But something about the weight of that look made my stomach tighten. "Careful here." Mark's deep voice cut through the silence as he pointed out a dip in the ground. His hand brushed my shoulder briefly, steadying me before I even stumbled. It was such a small gesture, casual even, but I felt it like a spark through my jacket. Tyler didn't notice. He was too busy rambling about the best spots for deer, how his dad always knew where to look. I nodded, pretending to listen, but my mind was stuck on the way Mark's hand had lingered a second too long. We stopped for a break by a small stream. Tyler knelt to refill his water bottle, splashing cold water on his face. Mark stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the treeline. His shirt stretched against his chest, the fabric worn and faintly stained from years of use. He looked solid, dependable, dangerous. "You holding up okay?" Mark asked, his eyes flicking to mine. I swallowed. Yeah, just not used to this much walking. The corner of his mouth tugged upward, almost a smile. "You'll get used to it. Woods have a way of testing you, showing you who you really are." There was something in the way he said it, low, almost meaningful, that made me shiver, even though the sun was warming my skin. Tyler rejoined us, completely unaware of the strange undercurrent passing between his dad and me. He joked about how city kids like me weren't built for the outdoors, and I laughed along, but my chest felt tight. As we moved on, I caught myself noticing more. The way Mark walked behind me, close enough that I could hear his steady breathing. The way his gaze seemed to trace over me whenever I shifted my rifle strap. The way my body reacted, confused, restless, alive. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. He was my best friend's dad. Older, off limits. But the silence of forest made every glance louder, every accidental touch heavier. By the time we reached the clearing where we'd set up camp, I already knew something had shifted. I couldn't explain it, but the air between us felt charged, different. And deep down, a part of me realized this trip wasn't going to end the way I thought. The sun dipped lower as we set up camp, its fading light turning the forest gold. Tyler busied himself with the tent, cracking jokes about how useless I was outdoors. I laughed, pretending to fumble with the stakes, but my mind wasn't on the tent. It was on the man a few feet away. Mark crouched near the fire pit, stacking wood with practiced hands. Every movement was precise, deliberate, his forearms flexed beneath rolled-up sleeves, veins standing out against tan skin. He didn't say much, but every so often I felt his eyes on me, watching, measuring. When the fire finally caught, flames licking the dry wood, Tyler cheered like it was a victory. He tossed a packet of marshmallows at me, grinning. Bet you've never done this in the city. I shook my head, smiling. Not like this. Mark sat across the fire from me, the flames lighting his face in shifting orange and shadow. He looked older here, more rugged, but also softer somehow. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. He noticed. His eyes held mine just a beat too long, before he looked away and took a sip from his flask. Dinner was simple. Canned beans, bread, a little jerky, but everything tasted richer under the open sky. Tyler talked nonstop, filling the silence with stories from school and plans of future. I nodded and laughed at the right times, but my focus drifted. Every time Mark's deep voice rumbled across the fire, it tugged at me. Every time he stretched an arm behind him, his shirt pulling tight, I looked too long. And every time he caught me staring. He didn't call me out. He just let it hang there. Later, Tyler crawled into the tent early, muttering about being exhausted. His snores came fast, a steady rhythm that filled the clearing. That's when I felt it, really felt it. The shift. Mark stayed by the fire, tossing another log into flames. I lingered, pretending to enjoy the night air, but inside I was buzzing with nerves. "You're quiet," he said finally, his voice low, almost intimate. I shrugged, poking at the fire with a stick. Just taking it in, I guess. He nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "You don't seem like the hunting type, but you've held up well today." I glanced at him, caught in that stare again. "Thanks. I'm just trying not to embarrass myself." That made him chuckle, low, deep, warm. It rolled through me in a way I wasn't prepared for. The silence after stretched, thick and heavy. Crickets hummed. The fire cracked. And then, I swear, it felt like the world narrowed. Just the two of us sitting there, shadows dancing across our faces. My chest tightened. My pulse quickened. He leaned back, arms crossed, his eyes never leaving mine. "You've got more grit than you think." I should have looked away. I should have gone into the tent, ended the moment, but instead I held his gaze. Too long. Way too long. And something unspoken hung between us, as real as a fire that burned inches from our feet. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination, just a tired mind playing tricks. But when I finally crawled into the tent, lied beside Tyler's soft snores, I couldn't shake the feeling. Mark hadn't touched me. He hadn't said anything out of line. But the way he looked at me, the way my body reacted, it was enough to keep me awake for hours, staring at the canvas ceiling. And somewhere deep inside, I knew, tomorrow, things would get even harder to ignore. The next morning, the forest woke before I did. Birds chirped. Light filtered through the thin canvas of the tent, and the air carried that crisp chill only the woods could hold. Tyler was still asleep, sprawled out like a kid who'd run too hard the day before. I tried to slip out quietly, not wanting to wake him. When I unzipped the flap, Mark was already up. He stood by the river, coffee mug in hand, the steam curling into the cool air. He looked like he belonged here, solid, steady, carved into the landscape itself. He turned when he heard me. For a moment, his expression softened, like he'd been expecting me. "Morning," he said, his voice low, steady. I rubbed the back of my neck, suddenly self-conscious. "Morning," couldn't sleep anymore. He nodded toward the river. "Peaceful, isn't it?" I stepped beside him, watching the current carry leaves downstream. The silence between us was different now, charged, humming with something I couldn't name. And then he asked quietly, "Do you trust me?" I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, of course." He didn't explain, just sipped his coffee and let the question linger. Tyler woke later, loud and joking as always, and the tension scattered like smoke in a breeze. We packed for a short hunt, Mark leading the way deeper into the woods. The ground was uneven, branches snapping under our boots. Tyler bounded ahead, full of energy, while I lagged behind, still thinking about that question. Halfway through, Mark fell back to walk beside me. His shoulder brushed mine once, twice. Maybe accidental. Maybe not. "You're not bad at this," he said quietly. I laughed nervously. "I'm just trying to keep up." He glanced sideways at me, his eyes catching the light through the trees. "You're doing better than you think." The words felt heavier than they should. Praise, yes, but layered with something else. Something unspoken. By midday, Tyler complained about being hungry, so we stopped to eat near a fallen log. I sat on one end. Tyler stretched out on the ground, and Mark sat closer than I expected. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off him, even without touching. Tyler dozed after eating, his hat pulled low over his face. The woods fell quiet except for the rustle of leaves overhead. Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice low. He trusts you. You know that, right? I nodded slowly. Yeah, he's like a brother to me. Mark's jaw tightened just for a second. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and my chest tightened under the weight of it. The moment stretched. Too long. My heart thudded in my ears. And then Tyler stirred, muttering in his sleep, and the spell broke. Mark stood abruptly, clearing his throat, pretending to adjust his pack. I exhaled, realizing I had been holding my breath. That night, back at camp, Tyler crashed early again. I lingered by the fire, restless. Mark sat across from me, shadows flickering across his face. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence was heavy, thick with everything we hadn't said. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice low enough that only I could hear. Sometimes there's more going on than people realize. I froze, my mind racing. What did he mean? Was he talking about me? About us? Before I could ask, he stood, dousing the fire with water, the hiss filling the clearing. Get some sleep? Big day tomorrow. He walked past me, brushing my shoulder as he did. Just a touch, light, fleeting, but it sent a shock through me. In the tent, Tyler snored softly, oblivious. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. I couldn't stop replaying the way Mark looked at me, the way his voice dipped lower when he spoke, the way his hand had brushed mine as he passed. It was nothing. It had to be nothing. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself, because everything was building to something, and I had no idea if I was ready. The next day should have felt normal. It didn't. Breakfast was quiet. Tyler cracked dumb jokes between bites, but Mark and I barely spoke. Every time I looked up, I caught him watching me, never for long, just enough to make my chest tighten. His eyes would linger for a second too long, and then he'd look away, as if nothing had happened. By late morning, Tyler was buzzing with energy, eager for another hunt. He begged his dad to let us go deeper into the woods, somewhere real hunters went. Mark hesitated, then finally agreed. We geared up, packs slung over our shoulders, boots crunching on dry leaves. The trees closed around us, the forest darker, denser, more isolating than before. Tyler skipped ahead, chasing shadows and shouting back at us. That left Mark and me behind, just the two of us. Again. At first, it was simple. He asked me if I was comfortable with the rifle. I said yes, though my hand shook a little as I held it. He stepped closer, placing his hand over mine, adjusting my grip. Like this, he murmured, his voice low, warm against the cool air. His touch was firm, but not rough. Guiding. Steady. Too steady. When he let go, my skin still burned where his hand had been. I swallowed hard, pretending it was nothing, but I could feel my heart hammering, and I knew he could hear it too in the silence of the woods. Hours passed. Tyler's laughter faded deeper into the forest, until it was just background noise. Mark and I stayed behind, moving slower, quieter. There were moments where we said nothing, just walking side by side, our shoulders almost brushing, the silence between us thick, charged. At one point he stopped. Wait! I froze, thinking he'd seen something, a deer maybe, but no. He was looking at me, just me. His gaze held mine, unwavering. I couldn't breathe. You know, he said softly, you don't hide your thoughts as well as you think. My mouth went dry. W, what do you mean? He didn't answer right away, just studied me, as though he was peeling away every layer I tried to put up. Then he shook his head, almost smiling to himself. Forget it. And he started walking again, leaving me frozen in place for a moment before I scrambled to catch up. but his words echoed in my head, louder than the crunch of our boots. By afternoon, Tyler was tired. He flopped onto a log, saying he needed a break. Mark told him to stay put and rest. "We'll check the ridge," he said, nodding for me to follow. And just like that, it was the two of us. Alone. Again. The trail was narrow, lined with thick undergrowth. Mark walked ahead at first, then slowed until we were side by side. Neither of us spoke. The silence pressed in harder than before. Finally, he stopped, turned, and then his hand brushed mine. Just barely, but it was deliberate. I flinched, heart leaping, every nerve on fire. He didn't pull away. "Relax," he whispered. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. But my mind raced. Tyler was just a few hundred feet away. What if he came looking for us? What if anyone knew what was happening here in the quiet shadows of the forest? Still, I didn't move. I couldn't. His hand lingered against mine, warm, steady. Then he stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of pine and smoke clinging to a jacket. "Do you trust me?" he asked again, the same words from before. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He reached up, brushing a stray leaf from my hair. His fingers trailed just a little too long, grazing my temple. My breath caught, and then from the distance, Tyler's voice rang out. "Dad, you good?" We jumped apart like we'd been caught. Mark cleared his throat, calling back, "Yeah, we're fine." His voice was steady. Mine wouldn't have been. We walked back to Tyler quickly, neither of us speaking. The silence was worse now. Thicker, heavier, weighted with everything that almost happened. When we reached him, Tyler grinned, oblivious. "See anything cool?" "No," Mark said shortly. But when I dared to glance at him, his eyes met mine for the briefest second. A look that said, "This isn't over." And deep down, I knew he was right. That night, around the fire, Tyler talked nonstop, filling the air with stories and laughter. I barely heard a word. I was too aware of the man sitting across from me, the way his eyes flicked toward me when Tyler wasn't looking, the way his silence pressed into me, daring me to acknowledge it. At one point, Tyler got up to fetch more firewood. For a few seconds, it was just us. Mark leaned forward slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You felt it too." It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Couldn't. But he didn't need my words. Because silence, sometimes, says more than anything else. And as Tyler's footsteps crunched back through the leaves, my chest ached with the truth I wasn't ready to face. This was just the beginning. The forest was quieter that second evening. Too quiet. Tyler fell asleep early, worn out from the long day. His soft snores filled the tent, leaving me awake, staring at the nylon ceiling above me. Every sound outside, the wind through the trees, the crackle of the fire still smoldering, felt louder than it should. And then I heard it, the faint rustle of boots outside, slow, measured, stopping just beside our tent. My breath hitched. Seconds later, Mark's voice whispered, "You awake?" I froze, torn between pretending to sleep or answering. Finally, I whispered back, "Yeah." "Come out for a second," he said. My stomach twisted, but I unzipped the flap carefully, trying not to wake Tyler. The cool night air hit me immediately, carrying with it the earthy scent of damp leaves and smoke. Mark stood there, arms crossed, lit faintly by the dying glow of the fire. He nodded for me to follow. I did. We walked a little way into the trees, far enough that Tyler wouldn't hear us if he stirred. Mark stopped near a fallen log and sat down, motioning for me to do the same. For a while, he didn't speak, just stared into the shadows of the woods. Finally, he said, "Do you know how hard it is to keep pretending nothing's happening?" My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" He turned his head toward me, eyes sharp even in the dim light. "You know what I mean." I swallowed hard, looking away. My pulse raced in my ears, too loud, too obvious. "You're his dad?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "And he's my friend. This is wrong." Mark leaned closer, not enough to touch, but close enough that I felt the heat radiating off him. "Then tell me to stop." His voice was steady. challenging. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He smirked faintly, almost bitterly. Exactly. The silence stretched. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to move, to say something, to end this. But I couldn't, because underneath all the fear, all the guilt, was something I couldn't deny. I wanted him to stay close. He reached out suddenly, his fingers brushing my wrist. Not a grab, not even a firm hold, just a touch. Testing. My chest tightened. "Tell me you don't feel it," he murmured. I stared at the ground, trembling. It doesn't matter if I do. His hand lingered anyway. It matters to me. For a second, I almost leaned in. Almost. But then, from the tent, Tyler shifted loudly in his sleep, mumbling something. We froze. Mark pulled his hand back quickly, leaning away. His jaw tightened, eyes flicking toward the tent. "Go back," he whispered, before he notices. I did. My legs felt heavy, my chest burning as I crawled back inside. Tyler rolled over, snoring softly again. Still asleep. I lay down, staring into the darkness, my body trembling with what almost happened. And what would happen if we let it? The next morning, it was worse. Everything felt normal on the surface. Tyler joking, Mark making coffee, the three of us packing our gear. But beneath it, something was different. I caught his eyes more than once. Held them, looked away too fast. Tyler didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being caught between two worlds. The safety of friendship and the danger of something I wasn't supposed to want. Later, we split up to track deer. Tyler ran ahead again, eager and restless. That left Mark and me together. Again, we didn't talk much. Just walked side by side, the silence so thick it felt like it might choke me. At one point, he stopped suddenly, holding out his arm to keep me from stepping forward. "Quiet," he whispered. My heart skipped. I thought he meant a deer, but when I followed his gaze, he wasn't looking into the trees. He was looking at me. "Why do you keep fighting it?" The question cut through me like a blade. "I'm not," I whispered back. "Yeah, you are," he said. His eyes searched mine, and for a second, I thought he might close the space between us right there in the middle of the trail. I stepped back instead, my back hitting a tree. My breathing quickened, shallow. He moved closer. Not touching. Not yet, but close enough that I felt the air shift between us. "Tell me to stop," he said again, his voice low. I couldn't. The sound of footsteps saved me. Tyler came crashing through the underbrush, grinning, holding up something he swore were deer tracks. I jumped, moving quickly away from Mark. My face burned. Mark's expression didn't change. Calm, composed, like nothing had happened. But I saw in his eyes the hunger, the need, the determination, and I knew it wouldn't end here. That night, Tyler fell asleep even faster, dead tired from the long trek. I lay in my sleeping bag, staring into the dark, when I heard the faint sound again, boots outside. My stomach dropped. The flap unzipped slowly. Mark's face appeared in the faint moonlight, his eyes locked on mine. He didn't speak, just crooked a finger, telling me to follow. And even though I knew I shouldn't, I did. We slipped quietly through the trees, the forest alive with crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. He didn't lead me far this time, just to the edge of the ridge, where the moonlight spilled silver across the leaves. He turned, facing me fully, and for the first time he didn't hesitate. His hand lifted, resting gently on my cheek. My breath caught. "This," he whispered, "isn't going away." And before I could protest, before I could think, he leaned in. Our lips didn't quite touch, but they hovered there, close enough that I could feel the warmth, the electricity. I should have pulled back. I didn't. And just as I thought I would close the gap, just as the world tilted dangerously, a branch snapped nearby. We jumped apart, hearts racing, eyes wide. Mark scanned the trees, his hand tightening into a fist. But no one was there, just the forest, just shadows. Still, the danger was too real, too close. He exhaled sharply, whispering, "Go, now." And I ran back to the tent, heart hammering, body shaking, every nerve screaming at me, because the line between almost and too far was blurring fast, and I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it anymore. The third night was different. I felt it before it even began. Tyler had fallen asleep again, worn out after hours of wandering to the woods and talking big about the deer he was sure he'd spot tomorrow. His snores came fast, heavy, but I was wide awake, waiting. And when the flaps shifted, when the quiet scrape of boots moved closer, I wasn't surprised. I met Mark's eyes immediately. This time, I didn't hesitate. I followed. He led me deeper than before, past a fallen log and ridge, into a clearing washed in moonlight. The trees circled around us like walls, the night sky above wide and endless. He stopped, turning toward me, his jaw tight, his chest rising and falling too fast. "This has to stop," he said at first, voice low. "It's dangerous." "Stupid." I nodded, though my pulse screamed otherwise. "I know." We stood there, breathing hard, neither moving. "But," he muttered, voice breaking slightly, "you keep looking at me like that." My heart jumped. "Like what?" His eyes locked on mine, sharp and hungry. "Like you want me to do something we can't take back." The silence between us cracked like glass. And then it happened. He closed the space in 2 steps, his hand finding the back of my neck. His lips brushed mine, not careful this time, not hesitant. "Real." I froze for half a second. Then I kissed him back. Hard. The world tilted. Everything I'd been pushing down, fear, guilt, want, exploded in that kiss. My hands clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, while his fingers dug into my hair, desperate. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't patient. It was a dam breaking. When he pulled back, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. "This is wrong," he whispered. "I know," I whispered back. But neither of us let go. The forest seemed to close in around us, amplifying everything. The sound of our breathing, the rush of blood in my ears, the heat between us. For a moment, I forgot Tyler existed. I forgot the world outside this clearing. It was just him, and me, and the wrist that made it all sharper. Then, a sound, branches breaking, footsteps. Both of us froze instantly, head snapping toward the noise. "Shit," Mark hissed, pushing me back gently. Quickly, his hand went to my shoulder, holding me still as he scanned the shadows. The footsteps faded again, moving the opposite way. We held our breath until silence returned. When I finally exhaled, my chest hurt. That was too close, I whispered. Mark's jaw clenched. "Yeah, it was." But his hand was still on me, his thumb brushing against my skin, unwilling to let go completely. We returned to camp in silence. I crawled into the tent, lying back beside Tyler, who hadn't stirred once. My lips still burned. My body still shook. Mark lay in his own tent a few yards away, but I felt him everywhere. Sleep never came. The next day was unbearable. Tyler joked, laughed, bragged about how he'd be the one to bring home the biggest deer. Mark acted normal, steady as always, his voice calm. But every time our eyes met, it was there. The memory of his mouth on mine, the danger of what we'd done, the knowledge that we wanted more. At one point, Tyler sprinted off again, chasing some noise he swore was a buck. That left me and Mark trailing behind. Alone, he walked close, too close. His hand brushed mine once, deliberately or not, I couldn't tell. I looked up at him, heart pounding. "Last night," I started. He cut me off. "Don't." His voice was sharp, but his eyes betrayed him, burning, restless. "You don't regret it," I said quietly. His silence was the answer. We didn't kiss again that day, but every second stretched thin, pulling us tighter together. Every step in the woods felt like walking a line that could snap at any moment. Every glance was a dare. Every silence, a promise. That night, it all broke again. Tyler snored loudly, dead to the world. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the tent, waiting. This time, Mark didn't come, so I went to him. I crept out carefully, my heartbeat thundering. His tent was just ahead, a faint shadow inside. I hesitated only once before unzipping it quietly. He looked up, instantly awake, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "I can't stop thinking about it," I admitted, my voice shaking. He stared at me, breathing hard. Then he grabbed me by the wrist and pulled me inside. The space was small, dark, suffocating with the weight of what we were doing. But when his lips met mine again, I didn't care. This time, I didn't think about wrong or right. I didn't think about Tyler. I just thought about him. And the way every kiss felt like a secret I'd never escaped. We stayed tangled together until exhaustion finally pulled me under. When I woke, dawn was breaking. Tyler was still asleep in the other tent. Mark and I didn't speak. We just looked at each other, both knowing it was too late to undo, and too dangerous to admit. The forest had grown quieter. Not silent, no. The wind still danced through the pine branches, carrying the softness of needles rubbing together. But quieter, like the world had decided to hold its breath. We were still sitting near the clearing where everything had cracked open. Tension still wrapped around us like fog. My chest still ached from what I'd said. And Evan was looking at me like he didn't know whether to speak or stay silent forever. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I'd never felt so bare in my life. His eyes, those soft hazel eyes with flecks of green, were fixed on me, and I couldn't read them. Not anymore. Not after I'd basically confessed the truth. That I liked him. That I wanted more. That I was terrified of what that meant. I opened my mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. I shouldn't have said all that, I finally muttered, eyes dropping to the dirt. I didn't want to lie anymore. Not to you. Not to me. A pine cone cracked under his boot as he shifted. "You think I wanted you to lie?" His voice was quiet, but wasn't cold. "You think I didn't notice the way you've been pulling away?" I flinched. He kept going. "I thought I'd done something. Like I made you uncomfortable. Or I was being too much. But now I get it. You weren't running from me. You were running from you." I looked up. That hit harder than anything I'd expected. He was right. I've been so scared. I whispered, "I've never liked someone like this. Like you." And it felt like if I said out loud, it would ruin everything. His eyes softened, but there was a flicker of hurt there too. "You think being honest ruins things?" I thought it would. And now, I took a breath. The air was cool, damp, pine-scented, and real. Now I think not saying it would have ruined me. He exhaled through his nose, slow, like he was holding back a storm, or maybe calming one. And then he did something I didn't expect. He moved closer. Not too close, just a few inches, but enough that our knees almost touched. Enough that I could feel the heat of him through the space between us. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. I nodded. My heart thudded. "I like you too." Time. Stop. The forest didn't exist for a second. Neither did his dad. Neither did the hunting trip. Neither did the fact that we were two boys sitting in the woods, hearts pounding like drums of a storm. I blinked. "What?" He laughed. This soft, breathy kind of laugh. The kind that said relief. The kind that cracked through my chest like sunlight. I said I like you too. And not just like I've been wanting to hold your hand since the second day you came over to help with the firewood. I stared at him. That was months ago. "Yeah." He smiled. "And you were wearing that ugly brown hoodie and you had sap on your cheek." I groaned. I knew it. He chuckled again, shaking his head. "You were so flustered. You wouldn't even look at me. I thought you hated me." "I didn't hate you," I said, voice cracking with a laugh. "I just didn't know how to look at you without giving myself away." He reached out then. Not fast, not dramatic, just slow, gentle. His fingers brushed against mine, and I swear the whole forest shivered. I looked down at our hands, just barely touching, skin against skin. The tiniest connection, but it was everything. My breath caught. He didn't grab me. He didn't force anything. He just waited, watched me, let me decide. So I turned my hand over and laced my fingers with his. The way his thumb curled around mine, I don't think I'd ever felt something so right. I looked up. His eyes were glowing, not in a magical way, in a true way, like he'd been carrying this light for a while, and now he finally got to show it. Is this okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, this is more than okay. We sat like that for a while. No words, just hands, just the sound of the forest, just breathing. And then he spoke again. My dad's probably wondering where we are. The mention of his dad made my stomach tighten. You think he knows? He hesitated. Maybe. He's not stupid. I'm scared, I said honestly. Not just of him, of everyone. I know, he said. Me too. But I don't want to hide you. That sentence, it broke something open inside me. You don't? No. I've been hiding pieces of myself my whole life, pretending I don't feel things, pretending I'm just one thing. But I'm not. I'm me. And you make me feel more like me than I've ever felt. Tears stung my eyes. I blinked hard. He reached up, and with his free hand, he brushed his thumb gently under my eye. You're crying. I'm not. I lied. He smiled. Okay, you're leaking masculinity. That made me laugh through the lump in my throat. Shut up. But it was perfect, because in that moment, between the trembling silence and the soft teasing, we were us. And I didn't feel broken. I felt brave. I don't know how long we sat there. The sun had started tilting, painting the trees in amber and rose. The shadows stretched. The air cooled. Eventually, we had to go back. His hand stayed in mine the whole way through the forest. And when we got close enough to see the cabin through the trees, he slowed down. You ready? He asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He squeezed my hand once tight, steady, like a promise, and we walked out of the woods. His dad was sitting on the porch, whittling something. He looked up when we appeared. His eyes flicked down to our joined hands. He didn't say anything, not right away. He just looked at Evan, then at me, then back at Evan. You okay? He asked his son. Evan nodded. Yeah. His dad looked at our hands again. Then he grunted and went back to carving. Don't forget to clean your boots before you step inside, he muttered. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't rejection either. It was room. And for now, that was enough. We walked up the porch steps together, still holding hands, still scared, but together. That night, lying in the small guest bed, I stared at the ceiling. Evan was asleep on the cot across from me, but I could hear his breathing, slow, soft, even. I thought about the day, the walk in the woods, the confession, the hand-holding, the look in his eyes. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel alone. The cabin never felt the same after that night. It wasn't that anything was different on the surface. The fire still popped in the stone fireplace. The smell of pine sap still clung to the wood walls. Evan's dad still woke up before dawn to make black coffee strong enough to peel paint. But for me, every moment carried a new weight, a secret I couldn't stop holding close. Because I knew now, and Evan knew too, and nothing could erase what had happened in the woods. When I woke the next day, sunlight was sliding across the floorboards, dust floating lazily in the beams. I could hear Evan breathing on the cot, steady and deep. My chest felt warm just listening to it. I thought about reaching across the space, about brushing my hand against his just to remind myself it hadn't been a dream. But then the floorboards creaked. His dad's footsteps. A mug setting down hard on the counter. Reality. I swallowed and rolled over, pretending to still be asleep. My heart pounded harder than any deer rifle ever could. Evan stirred not long after. I heard the rustle of blankets, then his soft voice. You awake? I turned my head. Our eyes met. He gave me the smallest smile. Nothing obvious, just enough for me. And that was when I realized the forest had given us something no one could see. But now we had to live in a world where people would see. The hours blurred together. We did chores around the cabin, hauled firewood, helped clean the shed. Every now and then, Evan brushed past me a little closer than necessary. His hand would linger when he passed me the axe. His knee would bump mine when we crouched side by side to sort the logs. Tiny things, almost nothing. But to me, they were everything. And every time I wondered, does his dad notice? His father was a quiet man, rough around the edges, the kind who spoke more with silence than words. Sometimes I caught him looking at us, too long, too carefully. My stomach twisted each time. At lunch, he finally spoke. "You two are thick as thieves lately." My spoon froze halfway in my mouth. Evan chuckled nervously. "Yeah, well, better than fighting, right?" His dad's eyes flicked to me, then back to his bowl. "Long as you're looking out for each other. World don't go easy on boys who ain't careful." It was nothing, just words. But to me, it sounded like a warning. Like maybe he knew. Like maybe he saw us in the woods yesterday and just hadn't said it out loud. My appetite vanished. That evening, after his dad went to bed, Evan and I sat outside on the porch. The night was cool. Crickets filled the silence. He leaned back against a railing, looking up at the stars. "You've been quiet all day." I sighed. "So have you." He smiled softly. "Guess we're both scared." I didn't answer right away. My hands twisted together in my lap. "What happens now? When we go home? When people see us?" He turned his head. His eyes met mine in the dark. "Do you want people to see us?" The question cut straight through me. Yes. God, yes. But also, no. Not if it meant losing everything. Not if it meant people looking at us differently. Not if it meant his dad finding out the truth and shutting me out forever. "I don't know," I whispered. He reached over, his fingers brushing mine again like they had in the woods. "Then maybe we don't figure it all out right now. Maybe we just start here." Here, he said, nodding toward the trees. "This place, these moments, us." I swallowed hard. But what if it all falls apart? His thumb rubbed gently against my knuckle. Then at least we'll know it was real while it lasted. I closed my eyes. The words wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't know I needed. The next few days went by slow. Too slow. Hunting, chopping wood, playing cards by the fire at night. The tension never disappeared. His dad kept watching. Not in anger, but in that way that made me think he was putting pieces together, testing them silently. On the last morning before we were supposed to head back, he pulled me aside. Just me. We stood near the shed, breath clouding in the crisp air. He squinted at me. "You're a good kid." I didn't know what to say. "Thanks, sir." His eyes narrowed. "Evan, he trusts you." I nodded quickly. I trust him too. He studied me a second longer, then nodded once. "Keep it that way." And then he walked off. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't acceptance either. It was somewhere in between, a line in the dirt I wasn't sure I could cross without losing everything. When the trip ended, the weight of normal life pressed down harder than ever. School, work, family, all the pieces that had nothing to do with forests or campfires or confessions whispered in the dark. Evan and I texted constantly. We found excuses to hang out, helping each other with homework, trips to the store, late-night drives with music too loud. But the secret grew heavier each day. Once, sitting in his truck, he looked at me with that same half-smile he'd worn in the woods. "Sometimes I just want to hold your hand in front of everyone." My chest ached. Me too. But we didn't. Not yet. Weeks passed. Then months. The memory of that hunting trip stayed with me like a scar. Tender, raw, but beautiful. One night, we ended up back by the river near town. No woods this time. Just the water glinting under moonlight. We sat there in silence, shoulders brushing. And for the first time, I didn't feel scared. Not of him. Not of what it meant. "I don't want to hide forever," I said quietly. He leaned his head against mine. "Then we won't." And that was when I knew, no matter what happened, even if the world never understood, even if his dad only half accepted it, even if everything else fell apart, what we'd shared in that forest wasn't just a moment. It was ours. Looking back now, I don't know if I'd call it fate or just chance. 2 boys, a hunting trip, and a secret that cracked us open, We didn't have all the answers. We still don't. But what I know is this. That day in the woods changed me. It taught me that hiding doesn't protect you. It just keeps you from breathing. It taught me that fear never really goes away, but love makes it worth carrying. And it taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply reach out and hold on, because sometimes one touch can change everything. If you've made it this far, I need one word from you in the comments. Shocked, exposed, guilty, seen. Whatever this story left you feeling, your words matter. But don't go anywhere, because the next story is darker. It's about trust broken in a place you should always feel safe. A secret night, a closed door, and something no one was supposed to see. Are you ready for that? Stay tuned.